year
This
was a different.
conference will now be recorded.
Great.
Okay, well, this is being recorded now and it's 7 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Lindsay, you said we have some people for open forum?
Yes, we do, Mayor Woodbury. I have 4 people signed up. So
Okay.
I guess I'll call them in the order in which they signed up, just to keep that fair for everybody.
Okay.
So I have Heather Arnott up first.
Okay. Heather, if you'd like to go ahead first, please.
Camera. Wonderful. Thanks, guys. Just to address everyone here, thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. We're both actually going to speak, but it's on topic 8.8.2 tonight on the Wilder Lake subdivision. The first thing I have to do, and I know Tom will be as well, is to thank Clinton and all of the staff involved in the work, the diligence, the energy that has gone into this report. We are just totally impressed with it, with the work that has been done and the issues from the public that you have addressed. And we just know that you've done a lot of work here and we want to say thank you. Very, very happy. The one thing that I wanted to just speak with is just to give an update on where we're at with the dock, with the MNRF. We spoke to Julie Simard, who is a resource operations supervisor from Midhurst District, just on Friday, and asking where we're at with the lake bed ownership that's under the dock. As everyone knows that the Crown, they have stated that the lake bed is Crown owned. But we're wondering what's going to happen here with this dock, with it being included in the subdivision and zoning being an issue with it now for discussion tonight. Is how does that impact with, if there hasn't been a decision yet? Those were the questions that we had for Julie. And she said to us, this was from MNRF, that they aren't the holdup in making this decision. They're still waiting on paperwork from the developer. Some of the questions, so that is a holdup. I don't know what the issues are, with compliance, with privacy. She couldn't disclose a whole lot of information to us, but that was her statement. Some of the questions that we had, and she agreed with us but didn't know the answers, was whether if there is a land patent. Kind of have to assume that there isn't, or else it would have been provided by now. Now what do we do? Is it going to be a lease agreement for the dock to remain right where it is and to be included in the subdivision? Is it going to be a land patent where they sell the land under the dock to the developer? They didn't have a decision made on that, but if it is a lease agreement, there's usually conditions attached to it. But what she didn't know what type of conditions. So the major questions we had was, whose jurisdiction will it fall under? Will it be township? Will it be MNRF? So that's really an issue that has to be resolved, of who's going to be responsible for that dock. And the other one was restrictions. Limitations, restrictions of activities or structures that could, be on the dock. So she wanted to investigate that and get back to us. So those were the 2 major issues. Now, having said that, reading through the staff report and reading about the EP areas and a request for exceptions to build structures in the EP areas, but the staff have recommendation against that. Just we're curious and assume that the dock would be included in that EP area. I don't know. I'm assuming it would be, which would mean then that there's no structures on that dock, if that's the case. I don't know if that's included. So just thought we'd bring that question up. I know it's not a dialogue with us tonight, but perhaps between council and staff, that discussion could be had on just confirming that piece. But really, those are my own concerns still of the dock being included in the subdivision and the zoning of the commercial C5-45 when MNRF doesn't have this resolved yet. So just wanted to bring that to the attention, but otherwise, as I said, like kudos to all of you. Just remarkable work. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks.
Lindsay, who's next?
Tom Arnott is next.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
All righty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I just want to, I'm going to also talk about the same thing Heather did with regard to the Wilder Lake subdivision. Again, I also want to put in my kudos to Clinton and the staff for all the work. Sometimes the little guy doesn't get heard, and we think, we know that we've been, our concerns have been heard, and we're just so pleased that a number of them have been addressed. Now, tonight I have a couple of points of clarity, and I'm going to ask some questions, so I know they won't get answered tonight, but I just want to clarify a few things and then just throw the questions out that maybe at some point in time somebody will be able to answer. The first issue is the issue of night lighting, and kudos to the township for considering a township-wide lighting bylaw, long overdue in this day and age with carbon footprint reduction. It's something that definitely, it should be done sooner than later. There seems to be some misunderstandings about night lighting, and it's not about, you got to keep lights off. And it's not just about having the right fixtures. There's some other key components that I think are being totally missed by a lot of people. And the three of them is on when you need them. Only light the area that you need light lit, and only as bright as you need to have them. And I'll give you a fairly common household example that you may be reading a book in bed and you've got a light beside you that you have on. When you're done reading, the light's off. You don't have any other lights usually on in the house. In the hallway or in the bathroom, you might have a night light. Very, very dim, helps you get to wherever you need to go. In last night's storm, and we lost our power here, I assume that a lot of other people did, I could not believe how dark it was in the house. Okay, I couldn't see anything. The point I'm trying to make here is that light is always necessary, but it's all about being functional and not excessive. So if you kind of think about that in those terms, you'll understand. Now, the current dock in the clubhouse lighting at Homestead has some of the right fixtures, but falls far short on all of the other components. And this issue has been mentioned in the staff report. These two areas have 35 lights between the two of them, and they're on 24/7. So my question is, when is it going to be addressed? I know it said in the staff report that it would be, and it should happen sooner than later. The second point is regarding the visual impact study, the environmental impact study, the environmental management plan, and the subdivision agreement that are all mentioned in the staff report and in the county draft approval. There's a fairly extensive list of conditions that have to be met. And again, the two questions we have is, how are these going to be managed long term? There's a lot of written things that are going to be there, but how are they going to be managed? Who's going to manage them? And the second is, if you have non-compliance issues, how do those get dealt with? The third thing is the boating issues, and this is in the staff report as well. There is a federal, it's called the VORR program. I won't say exactly what those initials stand for, but it's a program that gives the township the ability to move towards a non-motorized lake should they decide to do that. And in the staff report, it mentioned about noise and safety, and it goes far beyond that. It's the well-being of the shoreline because of wake, the effect of wildlife, and certainly the potential liability with the township, because 95% of the boats that appear on this lake are launched at the concession right-of-way that's part of the township. And if it ever moves to a non-motorized lake, it's very simple to put up barriers so you can launch canoes and kayaks and things like that, but you can't launch a trailered boat, which most motored boats are. And any of the policing it's OPP policing. It's not the jurisdiction of the township, on something like that. The fourth point is, and it's a point of discussion that I think should be brought up with township here, is that it's strictly regarding the zoning issues, is the lake should be given a zoning designation. And this happens in many municipalities, and it's quite commonly called Lake Zone (LZ). And with 10 new docks probably coming to this lake in the subdivision, the township really has to take jurisdiction over, and setting the standards for what is the size of a dock, material, those kind of things. And I outlined all that in one of my emails that I sent to everybody. So it's something that really the township should look at. And finally, it's just a comment from both Heather and I, is that please continue to include the public when dealing with issues of the lake. The lake is a common element. It affects many, many people. And the future is now. The township needs to be proactive and not reactive for these issues, because if we don't, what's going to happen. We're going to be dealing with this 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So again, thanks for your time. And I know there was a lot there, but we certainly wanted to try to cover it off.
Thanks for your comments, Tom. Appreciate it. Lindsay, who's up next?
Monica Caprini is up next.
Okay, Monica, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity to speak. I also wish to address the concerns around the Wilder Lake subdivision zoning. Unfortunately, I don't think I will be quite as complimentary as Tom and Heather were on this whole business. I grew up on the lake. My family moved there when I was 5. Until now, not a lot has changed in the intervening 50-odd years. When council considers approving the zoning bylaw at the next meeting, I'll hope they'll reflect on the fact that this residential development, as proposed, with the risks it poses to the lake, will change the character of the community completely. We will be another suburb with no urban center. The past couple of years have been a real education in how residential development is done. As I've listened to the meetings and read the reports, I've been struck by how little real input the community has in the development process. Some very thoughtful questions from councillors to the planners and developers were just dismissed with vague answers or promises to address the concerns later. I know the bottom line is that the township needs tax dollars now. Any problems that the proposed development might cause, traffic, pollution, waste, are probably years down the road. The tax dollars from this development will help fix the problems we have now that were created years ago, like the sewage issue in Dundalk. I understand that municipalities have been put in a very difficult position where they have to expand the tax base to fund the increasing demand for municipal services. Part of the appeal of this development for the township and county seems to be that they won't be responsible for paying for anything. They're even planning to offload stormwater management onto a future proposed condo corp. That's great for the bottom line. And all the items meant to address the concerns of current residents, from bylaws around lighting, landscaping, sheds, docks, will only cost money if they're enforced. I understand why you might feel the need to approve the zoning bylaw amendment, but I still wish you wouldn't. Finally, the developer, township, and county all claim that the lake bottom is Crown land, but have provided no evidence to prove that. Land registry records from around 1901 and 1902 show that the National Portland Cement Company bought the lake from surrounding landowners to mine it for marl. Since then, there were other land sales that included lake bottom. I have a deed to and pay taxes on a small island in Wilder Lake, which was created as a parcel in land registry as a result of one of those sales. As it directly affects my property rights, I would like to request that the evidence the developer has submitted to the township and the lake bottom is Crown land be made public. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I know this isn't a question and answer part, but I would like to correct you on the sewage issues in Dundalk. That is completely paid for by the people that are hooked up to it, not even the ones that live in Dundalk that are on septic.
Okay, thank you.
It's just not on taxes and that. But thank you for your comments. Greatly
Thank you for
appreciate
clarification.
it. Lindsay.
Our last speaker tonight is Cory Henry.
Okay, Cory, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. My name is Cory Henry. I work for the Township of Southgate. I'm the lead hand in Dundalk, looking after the water and wastewater systems as well as the roads. I've been an employee for almost 13 years and the lead hand for 9 of those years. I wanted to speak today about the vaccination policy that is on the agenda. I understand the need for a policy, and I'm not here to debate that. I'm here to debate the lack of choice and options that the submitted policy states. I sent an email to council earlier in the week stressing my opinions and thoughts. I hope you took the time to read it, and thank you if you did. There are a few points I want to stress today, and they are, number one, that fully vaccinated people can still get COVID, become ill, and spread the virus. Number two, are there short-term or long-term effects from the vaccine? If there's not a clear answer to this question, I do not think it should be forced upon anyone. Is Southgate going to number three, is Southgate going to financially support someone who becomes ill or has long-term effects from the vaccine? If the answer is no, this again should not be forced upon anyone. Number four, does the vaccine affect fertility? On the Moderna website, it states, the safety and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccine Moderna in pregnant women and children have not yet been established. So if they don't know that it's safe, how is it possible that anyone else does? Number five, the vaccinated staff that I have spoke to do not agree it should be forced upon fellow employees, and they have no problem working with unvaccinated staff. They feel our current protocols are sufficient to protect one another. And I do say one another because, again, a vaccinated person can spread the virus. Number six is vaccines do not stop the spread of the virus. They might help reduce the symptoms. If an employee feels that they can fight the virus on their own, they should have that choice. If anyone has symptoms, vaccinated or not, they should stay home. If everyone is following the protocols, COVID-19 should not spread at the workplace. I also want to mention that I was told if Grey County implemented a policy that Southgate would follow suit. I read the Grey County policy, and it states an option for unvaccinated employees to complete an education program and undergo regular testing. They are giving their employees a choice. So why is Southgate not following suit? Why are they not giving their employees a choice? I have reached out to other municipalities, and some are talking about a policy that advises employees to get vaccinated. Some have a policy with the same option as Grey County does. So why is Southgate submitted policy basically saying, get the vaccine or get out? With all the animosity that currently surrounds vaccinated versus unvaccinated, I support a more inclusive policy that applies to all staff. This includes the addition of an option for rapid antigen testing for anyone showing symptoms, vaccinated or not. I hope you please reconsider the submitted policy. Please give Southgate staff an option. Please give them a choice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cory. And we're always open to hear on employees' thoughts on policies and procedures and that. So thank you for your comments. Is that it, Lindsay?
Yes, Mayor Woodbury, that was everyone that signed up.
Okay, and we've done our 15 minutes, so we'll move on to confirmation of the agenda. Moved by Jason and seconded by Jim. Any discussion on that? Is anyone opposed to it? That is carried. Next, if anyone has any pecuniary interest, you can declare now, Brian, or at any other time.
Yes, I will be declaring a pecuniary interest, or I am declaring a pecuniary interest in item number 8.8.2, which is the Planning Report 2021-079, the Waters Lake Report. The developer is a family member, so I will recuse myself from that discussion.
Okay.
And I will file the proper paperwork with Lindsay at the earliest opportunity.
Mayor
Say
Woodbury.
something.
I think Mayor Woodbury's breaking up. Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Really interesting. Yeah. Oh. Okay. All right. Okay, thanks, Brian. Anyone else can declare at any time as well. Next, we have a presentation or delegation from Launchpad from Emily Morrison, and it's that we received that. It's moved by Barbara and seconded by Michael. Emily, if you'd like to go ahead.
Awesome, thanks very much. Are you guys seeing my screen by chance?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yep. Oh, perfect, sweet, good news. Awesome, thank you very much. So thank you again so much for taking the time to hang out with me or give me the chance to hang out with you tonight. My name is Emily Morrison and I'm the Executive Director at Launchpad Youth Activity and Technology Center located in Hanover. We're just not too far away from you, and I just want to stress that just because we're located in Hanover, it doesn't at all mean that only Hanover youth are welcome. We are super pumped when we get youth outside of our communities of Hanover into the building, and so if you can come to Launchpad, you are the youth are more than welcome. And so if you haven't heard of us before, if you haven't heard of who we are, again, we're a youth center and our primary focus is for youth 12 to 18. And so at Launchpad, we're really excited to be able to host after school programming for youth. We want youth to go to school and then come hang out with us after. And inside our building, we have a wood shop, we have a culinary kitchen, we have a technology lab full of computers, full of 3D printers, music equipment, production equipment, and we've also have a podcast, and that was our COVID-19 battle that we worked through. You know, it's really important for us to be able to offer hands-on opportunities to youth to really get in there. Our most popular program, which I'm now noticing I don't have a picture of, is welding. We have a welding shop, and it's just so exciting to be able to see youth in action and learn hands-on. And we never wanted to lose that. But at the same time, when COVID shut our doors, we wanted to come up with something that allowed youth to still be engaged. And what that means and what our mission is at Launchpad is to connect youth with the skills that make them excited that they're learning at Launchpad with local high quality career opportunities so that we can showcase to the youth in our communities that a great life does exist in Grey County and that this is a great place to live and grow a family. And so if we can showcase those cool jobs that exist locally, develop that pathway to success, then we're able to get them excited to stay and live here in our community. And so what our podcast does, What's Your 9 to 5? We go out and we interview cool people in the community. So we've had welders on, we've had electricians on, we've had architects on, photographers, and marketing agents. And we get to ask them questions about what's your 9 to 5? How did you get to where we are? What do you love about your job? And so we're able to showcase that to you. So it's a free podcast. If you haven't checked it out yet, I encourage you to do so. And then another COVID lockdown project that we did was we launched an ice cream truck in the parking lot of the youth center this year. And so we've essentially established a social enterprise called Neptune Scoops, and we've hired 7 young individuals. And so all Launchpad did was rent the truck for the summer in the parking lot. It was their decision to name it Neptune Scoops. They came up with the logo. They decided where to buy their ice cream from. It was their responsibility to place the ice cream order every week to make sure it came in on time so they didn't run out. And, you know, it's ice cream, it's scooping ice cream, but one ice cream cone can teach you cost of goods sold. One ice cream cone can teach you customer service skills. One ice cream cone can build a small business. And so that's what we did. We taught on those youth the entrepreneurial skills. We taught them what it was like to take your business plan and compare it to an actual reality. And so any profits made from the ice cream truck will be reinvested back into Launchpad. And so this is what a social enterprise is a revenue generating organization whose objective it is to have a social impact. And what we did was we gave 7 youth their first job and gave youth entrepreneurial skills. And so what I'm specifically here about tonight to talk to you about is our latest initiative called social procurement. And social procurement is a global movement that occurs when governments use their buying power to purchase goods and services from social enterprises. And so all summer during our summer camps, we have been making new products, we have been piloting new products, and we are now ready to say that we are able to be, and we are social procurement ready. So these are some various products that we've built over the course of the summer. Podiums for Launchpad, bike racks, various types of picnic tables. You can see we've married 2 of our training programs together, the steel base with the wooden top at that picnic table. You can see a traditional picnic table on the backside there. And then this is one we're really excited about. We've created, modeling off of others that we've seen, but a wheelchair accessible picnic table, which has been really exciting to have in the parking lot as a little seating area for the ice cream truck. And you can see in the background there, we've got some flower boxes, some raised garden beds, which if you look in close, you can see that angled triangle base. And again, that's an accessible raised garden bed. And so now a picnic table is no longer a picnic table. You know, when you put things on even keel, you know, that picnic table has been made by youth. That picnic table has been a part of a training program. That picnic table has developed teamwork, and that picnic table has kind of inspired a youth. You know, if they see that picnic table that they've built in their local park, every time they go past that park, they're going to tell everybody who's around that says, hey, I built that picnic table, and this is what I've learned. And you'll see that pride come out of them. And that's a fundamental principle of youth work too. And so no longer is your park bench just a park bench. And so that's where you can see that social procurement. If you choose to buy from a social enterprise, your dollars are having more of a ripple effect in your community. And so we already have current contracts right now with Neptune Scoops, where we built the picnic tables. Grey County Sydenham campus, they've bought bike racks off of us. And the Lucknow Agricultural Society has bought outdoor games, you know, the giant Jenga, those holy board games. And so we're really excited to be able to innovate with our youth to tackle ideas and solve problems that other community organizations have and be able to build things for the community youth. And so a cool part actually about social procurement is that our interprovincial trade agreements that were set up actually allow municipalities to the opportunity, if they wish to waive any RFP bylaws and regulations if they're choosing to buy from a local social enterprise. And so that's kind of another way that municipalities can use their buying power to be able to reinvest back in their own community, you know, to support those social impact initiatives. And so thank you for your time. And I'm just ready to say that Launchpad is ready to engage in any of your social procurement requests. And we're also willing to team up with any other organizations in your community. So again, happy to answer any questions and thank you for your time.
Great, Emily, thank you. Very informative, and a very important part of the community. Council, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, Martin here, John.
I think Mayor Woodbury left. He must have been froze. Councillor Dobreen, your hand was up first, but I don't know if
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Milton wants to take over. Well,
Oh, I
John
think
is
John's just
just-
logging back in.
Yeah.
there he is.
Yep, I'm back again. I heard the last of your presentation, Emily, and then everything just shut down. Yeah, again, thanks. It's a great part of the community, and I'd like to see how we can get involved with it. Were there any comments or questions?
I just was going to acknowledge Councillor Dobreen had a question, and then Councillor Shipston. So you take it from there, John.
Actually, why don't you finish this one off, and then when you're done.
All right, Councillor Dobreen, you had a question?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Milton. And hi, Emily. Nice to see you again. This is so exciting. I'm always just blown away by what Launchpad is doing and the youth that are involved there. I did forward your presentation to our recreation youth person that I work with for our Youth Action Committee, and just for his information. I was just wondering, you put the logo on the podium. Do you put anything on the picnic tables, the park benches, the bike racks that identify that? I mean, it's worth advertising. The social procurement enterprise, Launchpad. I think it would be worthwhile. And it's very exciting. I hope that we can take advantage of it, maybe when we redevelop parts of the parks and downtown Dundalk.
That's definitely an option that we can do, is to say who made it for you, but it's not a mandatory thing. So if you wanted even us to etch in your Township of Southgate on the top of the picnic table, we can totally do that. So we can personalize them for you guys.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, and it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Barb. Councillor Shipston, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Hi, Emily. Hope you're well. I think this is a great idea too. My only question is, you're talking about carpenters, welders, steel workers, basically trades. Do you actually go into the high schools and show your podcast there to the students in the trades as well, to show that you're out there? Like, is there any partnership with the actual educational trades at the high school, or is this over and above? We wouldn't want to be redundant, and I don't think you are, because you're going through that whole social procurement process so they can actually see what they're worth, because the trades make, when you get into it, to be a journeyman, you can make quite a good living. So are you partnered with the school board in any way, or is this over and above?
I would say the answer is both. So our unique factor is that we're able to start teaching youth at the age of 12. And so youth are able to try all the grades before they go to high school, when they more traditionally start picking their classes in grade 10 and 11. And so then that allows them to be super committed and super excited to those elective classes and go right in. Many retired teachers or current teachers are actually our instructors after school as well. So they do double time with us. So that's also really exciting. But actually right now, one of the cool programs that we're doing, we are actually a co-op placement for kids in high school. And so we're working with the high school to ensure that all the youth that want to try trades can come and do their co-op placement with us. And so that's really exciting. So we're actually taking on 16 youth this fall for co-op placements, so they can try and check out what it's like to get involved with the trades. So yeah, we're really excited to be working together with them.
Okay, well, I thank you for that. It just struck me when I was listening to your presentation, and that the fact that you didn't mention that you go down to grade like 12-year-olds. And that's where you have to start. That should be a very important thing you mention in any other presentation you do, that it is not high school. You're starting at a very young age, and that's where they should start to learn or feel that this is what I want to do. So maybe that's something that you should put in the age level, because that's why I asked my question. So thank you very much.
Good question.
Yeah, no, thanks. And thanks for that reminder. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any,
no worries.
any other questions or comments from council? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you very much, Emily. That was a great presentation, and I can feel the passion there. You're engaged in what you do, and that's very important. So thank you very much. Mike, did I see your hand there? Did you want to add something? No? Okay. He was just waving goodbye. So thanks, Emily.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye now. Bye.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm, as you may have noticed, having some computer problems here. So if I end up not being here again, that's what it is. So
Okay.
we have the motion before us to receive this as for information. Any discussion further on this? And is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Next, we have the adoption of the minutes from September 1st, and that is moved by Martin, seconded by Brian. Any discussion on those minutes? Okay, seeing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? And that is carried. Next, report of municipal officers, 8.1.1, moved by Jim, seconded by Michael, and that's Liam's report, FIN 2021-028, the building condition assessments RFP. Liam?
Yeah, so I guess I'll just do a brief summary. So we issued the RFP for building condition assessments, which closed on September the 1st. 11 submissions were received. The bids range from 21,700 to 105,120. So given the amount submitted, we looked at the first 5 submitted with the ones that had a price less than $50,000, just to see if any of those were sufficient. And we found all of them appeared to have the sufficient skills and expertise to complete the project. So a couple of them had submitted sample reports. So we requested sample reports from the remaining ones that hadn't. And after reviewing the reports, we felt that bold report was sufficient for what the scope of the RFP required. I guess I'll just comment, the bold is a smaller firm, for probably looks as if they have like 6 to 7 years worth of experience, whereas the other 4 that we assessed seem to be there's more of a organizations with multiple offices and staff that have like decades of experience. So if anything is a difference between them, that is the difference. They all have municipal experience as well as other organizations as well.
Great, thank you, Liam. Any questions or comments from council? Looks pretty straightforward. Okay, does anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. So thank you, Liam. Next, we'll move on to 8.2.1, and that is moved by Jason, seconded by Martin, and that's the noise bylaw exemption request. Bev, did I see you here? There you are. Is there anything you wanted to say about that, Bev?
Good evening, Mayor. No, I see you have a full agenda, so I'm just going to answer questions if there's questions to answer.
Okay. Let's see if there are any questions. Brian has a question.
I'm certainly not opposed to the request, but I would like to know, Bev, is there any indication that the applicants spoke to their neighbors?
My understanding is that the majority of the neighbors are invited and are well aware of what is going on here at this address.
That's always a top shelf way to avoid complaints, is to invite the neighbors. So good for them.
I do realize it's in a private location, dead end street, but it is, the majority of the neighbors have been invited.
Good enough. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Martin?
No question, just a comment and just saying congratulations, and I hope you have a great wedding. Sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay, not seeing any further. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Next, thanks, Bev. Next, Lindsay's report, 8.3.1. That's on recognition of September 30th as I'm reading it here somewhere, as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And that is moved by Barbara, seconded by Jason. Lindsay, did you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Not a whole lot to add here. It's pretty much all in the report with the recent discoveries of the remains and the unmarked graves across Canada. A lot of municipalities are recognizing September 30th as the date for, they're calling it National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. So I provided some links in the report that AMO, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, has put out for assisting papers, 2 papers that can assist municipalities with some more information. But this is basically just to recognize the day, and we will be, if approved, we'll be sharing on our social media platforms and that sort of thing. And possibly, I believe Councillor Dobreen wants to maybe make an amendment to say that we lower our flags. So we could likely do that. And I did put a paragraph in there. I spoke with Dave and Kayla because a lot of municipalities are doing another statutory holiday for this day, but at this time we are not considering that. So I added that in there too. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on the main motion as it is now, or questions? Barb?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Woodbury, as Lindsay alluded to, I had emailed her and commented that the county had also submitted or had passed a report at the Committee of the Whole, and it included the lowering of the flag to half-mast. Our bylaw prohibits the flying of special interest group flags, but we could certainly follow suit by lowering our flags at all municipal facilities, as well as Lindsay reminded me that she would need to bring back the policy to include flying the flags at half-mast year over year going forward. So on the agenda, I see that you've included that amendment. Should I read that, Lindsay, and propose?
Yes, please.
So I would like to propose an amendment to the motion to add further clauses that state that Council approve the lowering of the flags throughout the township on September 30th, 2021 in recognition of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and that Council direct staff to return to a future Council meeting with amendments to the current displaying flag policy number 51 to include the lowering of the flags for this day in future years.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Brian?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the amendment only at this point? Okay, seeing none, anyone opposed to the amendment? Okay, the amendment is carried. Now discussion is on the main motion as amended. If anyone has any comment on that. Brian?
Just a brief comment, Mr. Mayor, that I think this is important to recognize that the path forward is we have more of a line sight of the path forward, and any opportunity to educate ourselves on the history of our country and our lands is a good thing. And I think this is a good step towards that. And I encourage everyone to support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay. Next is 8.4.1, moved by Martin, seconded by Michael, and that's the RFP Dundalk wastewater treatment facility expansion. Hi, Jim. Any comments on this?
Good evening, good people. This is just to finalize the EA process and put out there this RFP for some technologies that we've looked at a little bit closer, but to finalize those to submit to the ministry for approval of where we may be able to go with this and add to the lagoons and the treatment facility. So it's not got any financial implication tied to it at this point. It's not awarding a contractor or a technology at this point, but just to finalize and go ahead with the EA and public meeting to follow to pursue this.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any questions or comments from the council? Brian.
So just for clarification, thank you, John. Just for clarification, Jim. So what this new technology that we're seeking or we may find will negate the need for a full-blown wastewater treatment plant in the foreseeable future. Is that what I'm understanding here?
That's the philosophy behind it. Again, if the ministry doesn't think that it's compatible and not worthy, then we're back at a possibility because EA does include for a full treatment plant. So again, we've done enough study work and leg work, the assimilative capacity study on the Foley drain. So it should be compatible, these technologies, but again, it will be up to the ministry's final decision in the process.
Thank you, Jim. Well, let's hope that the ministry's in good humor when they have a look at it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, not seeing any. Anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Thanks, Jim. Next, economic development. We have motion or item 8.5.1, moved by Jim, seconded by Barb, and that is the EDO's report 2021-002, and that's the green lid purchase agreement. Hi, Terry, would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I can just give a quick summary. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. And so I do have the privilege to present this to you. It's an offer from Greenland for your consideration to purchase 12 acres in the Echo Park. And just a little quick summary about Greenland. It was launched by Dragon Den's Arlene Dickinson and David Chilton during season 9 back in 2015. And Greenland produces truly compostable and sustainable tablewares and other products that are generally made out of plastic. The offsite impacts of the manufacturing are very limited. There's no noise, vibration, like air emissions, odors, dust. They plan to begin construction in 2022 and open in 2023. They will be creating approximately 20 jobs upon startup for local residents, and they do plan to grow the business. They do plan to purchase straw from local farmers, so there is spin-off business for the local community, as well as sell the byproduct back to the farmers that they can put on their land as fertilizer. The creators of Greenland, Morgan Wyatt and his brother Jackson. Morgan has a PhD in chemical biology. They've been involved in many government programs and are recognized, around the world for the work they're doing. One of the projects that they did that is notable for Canada is that for the Rio Olympics, they provided all of the mosquito traps and installed them to Canada House to keep the Olympians safe while they were there. And I'm actually just, pretty excited that we have the opportunity to welcome Morgan and his brother Jackson to Southgate, and I think it's an exciting opportunity for us. And did everyone get their sample products? Okay.
I know I did. Yep. I'm seeing
Okay,
a lot of people nodding heads. Yep.
excellent. I was actually using the straw today just to do the test to see if it did get soggy, and it did not.
Good. Well, thank you very much. I know we did the tour a little while ago, and we saw some of these products, and very impressed with the company and the products that they're doing and how they're doing it. So looking forward to this. Any questions or comments from council? Martin and then Brian.
I owe $5 the jar. Hi, Terry. Thank you, John. This is
right away.
great, Terry. I'll owe you that. I'll owe you that. No, I think this is such a great enterprise coming. It's actually something that is showing what the Eco Park has been stating for the last number of years. This is kind of what we want. And I thank you so much for sending me, or sending all of us, the YouTube of the actual Dragon's Den. I'd never watched that show before. I'm not really interested, but it was so cool to see these two young guys. And I loved the comment when she said, well, you're only 12. How can you do all this? You know, they're so young looking. And are they still, I think you mentioned last time, they're still involved with the company, aren't they?
They are, that's correct.
Yeah, and I think that is great. So for them to start the business and have 20 people working right away, and to have byproducts going back to the farmers, and this is just perfect. It just, I can't wait to see it happen. Get the shovel in the ground. So thank you for all your work, and it looks great.
Yeah, agreed. Brian.
Thank you, John. Terry, I just wondered, the product currently is being made offshore. So will the new plant, will they move production here, or is this going to be running in parallel with the offshore plant? Or do you know?
They're actually, yeah, I do know. They're actually moving the entire production here to Southgate. So they had in fact considered other communities to move to, and that's why it did take a little bit to close the deal. But the deciding factor is Petawawa Biofuels is in our eco park, and we also have access to farms close by our eco park. So they are carbon negative in production. And so they were very excited to be able to team up with Petawawa Biofuels, and also to have the local farmers.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great, thanks. Barbara.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Woodbury. Hi, Terry. Nice to see you again.
You too.
I was just wondering about the water taking. I had sent you that email, and about, because their process involves the taking of the use of water at a significant level. I'm not an expert on what is significant and what isn't. And then, of course, you know, the discharge of that water has to go somewhere, I would imagine, because it makes a mash, as you explained. Were you able to find out about any requirements or any concerns that we need to address with regard to their water taking? Because I think you said something like 5,000 liters or 10,000 liters a day. I'd have to go back to your email.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for the question. So yeah, on startup, they're looking to use 5,000 liters per day. And once they're at full production, they'll be using approximately 10,000 liters per day. They won't be putting any wastewater into the system from production. That is all valuable material that they can actually sell to go to the farmers' fields. So there'll be no wastewater from production at all. The only wastewater will be from their kitchen, sterilizing the facility, the washroom, things like that. As far as the water taking, I did forward those numbers on to Jim, but I know he was busy today. So I'm not sure if he had a moment to have a look at those or not.
No,
Yes,
here
Jim?
he is.
Because that could affect our water capacity, could it not? That was my concern.
Yep, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, Terry given me some information. So that 10,000 liters is 10 cubic meters per day. 5 days a week, that's 50 cubic meters a week. 52 weeks is 2,600 cubic meters per year. That equivalates out approximately to 10 or 11 ERUs, equivalent residential units for that taking. So at this point on that calculation, so and where we stand with our, so it's not a big. We've got lots of water capacity at this point. It's a couple years down the way almost, so it sounds like we'll have to work around the wastewater piece of it, but it doesn't sound like it will require the wastewater ERUs as the level of the water.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad I asked the question then, because that does affect our capacity for residential. So Dave's got his hand up, so thank you.
Yep, Dave?
Yeah, and so Terry and I have talked, and we're going to lead into discussions with the project proponents that there may be some creative ways that they can use water and recycle using other water sources. So we're going to investigate that and see what we can come up with, make them even more environmentally sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Great. They seem very open to any ideas like that, so that's great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Thanks, Terry. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Seeing none, that is carried. And next we have the bylaw for that agreement, moved by Martin, seconded by Jason. Any comments on this? And I don't see any, so Lindsay, I'll turn that over to you for a vote.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called for bylaw 2021-135, purchase and sale agreement in the Eco Park with Greenlid. Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Dobreen?
In favor.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shearston?
Yes.
Councillor Frew? Councillor Frew, I think you're on mute.
Yep.
Thank you. And Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Great. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Next up, moved by Michael, seconded by Barbara, and that's the CAO succession planning. Kayla, oh, there you are. How'd you like to let us know anything about this?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So we wanted to present this report to get the plan rolling and the discussions going in regards to the CAO succession plan, sorry. And we thought that it was important. We previously, a report was taken to council of all the different options depending on the type of situation. With the CAO's retirement approaching, we thought that maybe it was better to focus on this specific situation and start coming up with an idea on a plan and some timelines. And I know it seems like far away, but time moves quickly sometimes. So I guess I'm just, staff are looking for feedback on what you think of the recommendations that we provided, if that's the way you'd like to go, if there's changes you want made. And then also, if we could start, then we would like to start sooner rather than later. And also appoint somebody to lead and coordinate this process. Just with one point of contact, it's easier to make sure, manage timelines and make sure that everything's running smoothly and we're not rushing at the last minute.
Great, yep. I think this is a good idea to get going at this point. Questions or comments from council? Brian.
Well, first of all, I would say that we're a little premature because Dave's not going to retire for another 20 years. But anyway, that said, okay, maybe 10 years, maybe 10. He's only 25, so, you know. Anyway, that said, I wonder, Kayla, if you could speak a little bit more to the notion of just as recommended here, of just doing an internal first, and why, as opposed to an internal external at the same time. I have to admit that I've never been a big fan of just doing an internal first, and no disrespect to any current employees, but I've generally found that at the end of the day, you end up doing an external as well, generally, regardless. So I just wondered if you could give me a little more thought behind the decision to recommend that, please.
Yes, thank you. So I think the notion really is that if we had staff interested, then council may want to observe and speak to some of those people first ahead of time, and just see, yeah, if the interest is there and if council feel that there is a staff person that fits, and just give some time for that and some thought into it. Whereas if you did it both together, it would kind of be rushed, like the external, interviewing internal with external, you may not have that time to observe that you would like. It's just a thought, and for sure, if we would like to do both at the same time, that's definitely an option.
I guess, if I might, Mr. Mayor, I guess it's a little bit strange, I think, to suggest that council would observe, and that's your word, a potential employee. I haven't been in the workplace for probably 18, 19 months now. And even if I was, I don't interact with a lot of staff day to day. And I think it's a little unfair to think that I could observe somebody and determine whether they're, you know, capable of another job. It's an interesting way of looking at it. I had never seen anything like that before, but I won't say it wouldn't work, but it's a little bit different than I've ever seen. But in any case, that said, the other question that you had or in the motion is that we appoint someone to lead this, and I think the obvious person would be yourself, Kayla, and that would be my recommendation to put in there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah, maybe I'll take Kayla off the hook on this one, since I kind of put this in my original report. And I think the reason for it is have someone, if they're truly interested, come forward early and give you the opportunity to work with them more and be more involved, because this person is your employee, the 7 council members employee that is going to have to work with them in the coming years beyond the next election. And so it was just a concept that, you know, give internal employees a fair shot at presenting themselves and giving you an opportunity to really be comfortable, confident of putting them in that position, because, you know, putting a wrong person in wrong position is a really serious decision and a bad decision and then I think once you get to that, there is no doubt you're going to advertise internal and external, but I think you're going to have a lot of the work out of the way with your internal candidate, and you're going to look at the positives and the future training opportunities that may be required of an internal candidate against external candidates. And then you'll have a better feeling of, you know, whether you want to dance with the devils, you know, or the devil you know, or the devil you don't know. I think that's what it comes down to. But this is one of the bigger decisions, you know, that you're going to have to make, and along with many others. But this is hopefully the person that will be for the next 5, 10, 20 years to take on the CEO role. And so a very important decision. And we just think that it would give an internal applicant, not necessarily a heads up, but just an opportunity to show their skills that they haven't had the opportunity to show in the past.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Martin, and then Jason.
Yeah, thank you, John. With the internal applicant, I'm assuming it's going to be, if anybody applies, it will be one of the department heads, because they're more used to doing the reports and all that kind of stuff. Is there a chance for anybody to apply? Which sounds crazy, but it has to be top management that applies.
Point of order.
Yep.
Go ahead, Barb.
I don't think that identifying or reducing the scope of who could apply, or identifying that it would only be senior management. Maybe I misunderstood Councillor Shipton, but that's not a discussion for open session.
Okay, well, I agree with that. I'll take that back. No problem. If there is interest, though, I think we should go with an internal one first. If the staff think that's the way to go, I have no problem with it. I do agree with Deputy Mayor Milne's comment about how a council member can observe when 3 of the council members work and do not have any time to have a look at how they work. Is that going to be then virtual meetings, just to getting to know the person and getting to know their curriculum vitae, as they said, of what they've done for the town? Because I know I don't have time to observe any new person. I'm just putting that out there too. So the internal posting, if they want, if that's a good thing, there is a 1.5 years or whatever. So internal might be the way to go. It would be good to have somebody that knows the working of the township and is aware of what the township's about, without somebody coming in from the city. That might be starting something all over again, even if he has the proper skills. So I'm okay with the internal.
Okay.
To
Dave,
start.
Did you want to comment?
Yes, I do. I want to go back to, I think Martin made some really important comments, and I don't want to see staff kind of left with, oh, I'm not a department head, I'm not likely to apply. I would suggest that any employee that feels they have the skills should come forward, and there'll be some screening process to see if they, proceed on to another level. And that would be something that Kayla would lead, and there would be discussions with council or a committee of council, to have that early on interview to really weed them out. Or maybe somebody may come along that's a middle level supervisor that's taking, university courses on municipal management. We don't know. So I think we need to leave it wide open and just see what comes. Let's have that discussion. And as far as the time, Councillor Shipton, I think this time will be over several months. I mean, it's going to be first half or more, later on this year, and maybe into June, July next year, that you would have the chance to observe and work with them, meet with them. But Kayla will lead that process. But I didn't want to leave that there's maybe somebody going to go away from this call and say, I guess I shouldn't apply. I think anybody that has an aspiration for the position should apply.
Yep. Thank you. Jason, you're there? Well, we got you coming and going. While we're waiting for Jason to come back on, anyone else have questions or comments? Barbara.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Woodbury and Dave, Kayla, I happen to agree with Deputy Mayor Milne that I think Kayla would be the best person to lead and coordinate the process. As far as exploring an expression of interest from internal candidates, I think that timeline could be tightened. I think leaving this observation timeline till June leaves us in a bit of a tight circumstance if we do decide to do an external search. If it was tightened up, then I would be okay with an internal expression of interest to see is there anyone on staff currently that has aspirations to be the CAO, and allow you the opportunity, Kayla, and certainly Dave and committee of council, to determine what is needed to get them ready for that succession. As far as observation, it's true. I mean, we're not in the office, we don't have an opportunity, but it would give them an opportunity to be more present at council meetings. I mean, it would have to be confidential, because I would hate for it for people to start to speculate, oh, they're attending council meetings, so now they're probably being considered for the CAO position. And then if they're not successful, I really am, I'm sensitive to how that can be managed in a confidential way to protect the person who has expressed their interest. So I'm supportive of the process. I'd like to see it tightened up if we're not going to I think we need to make a decision sooner on whether or not we need to go external at the same time than what might be suggested. But you have my support, and I would be happy to second if Brian Milne is going to make that motion to appoint you. Kayla, I would be happy to second that.
Okay, thank you. I guess that Kayla being the one heading this would only work if there wasn't an application coming from Kayla. So for the position, so
that's true. So was it? Sorry, Mayor Woodbury, was it Kayla's intent then, perhaps, that she wanted someone on council? But I don't know how we can coordinate it as more efficiently. So
go ahead, Kayla.
But you make a very good point.
Go ahead, Kayla.
Yes, I did. I left it open just because I really wasn't sure what direction council would want to go, and I didn't want to lead you in any direction. So I am okay taking on that role if that's what council chooses.
Okay, thank you. I don't see Jason back, so Jim?
I don't believe that we should have someone from inside the township applying for the position of coordinator. I think we should get someone from outside to come in and handle this position.
Okay. Thank you.
Any response?
I don't see a response from anybody. Brian?
I was just going to suggest, I think, I think I'd like to, and Jim makes a point here, and I'm gonna come to his point. But I would like to see Kayla lead and coordinate the process. And if at some point we need to have a consultant do a piece of this, then she would have the ability to recommend that to council. But I don't think it's necessary to go to a council or a consultant right off the hop. I think Kayla has the experience and the wherewithal to very much lead this and coordinate it. And if she sees a need where at some point we need a consultant, then by all means bring that recommendation to council, and we'll consider it. But I'm 100% comfortable with Kayla leading this. Thank you.
Yep. Jason's back. Hi, Jason.
How you doing? I don't know where I went there for a while, but
Yeah.
I can hear you. Yeah. Just to circle back, I didn't hear all what you said, but I kind of agree with Brian's earlier point. I would like to see it external and internal at the same time. That's just my opinion. I was listening to what everybody was saying, so that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Barb, I saw you with your hand up again.
I was just going to elaborate on coordinating the process and leading the process. We still need, even if we did have an external consultant helping us in the recruitment and evaluation stage, we still need someone who is capable of managing and liaising with that person, as well as, you know, all of council and staff. As far as going external immediately, I think we could pause. My recommendation anyway would be to pause, tighten up the timeline to see if there is anyone interested internally initially. And I think that could be done in a fairly short window. And then if there is no one internal, then we have our answer. And certainly they could still apply if in, you know, 6 months, 8 months, their circumstances change or their interest level changes. But at this present time, an expression of interest, I think we could do in fairly, you know, in a month or two, and then hit the ground running early in 2022. That would be my support of your recommendations, Kayla.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, Dave?
I think there was a good comment put out there about, you know, is Kayla the right person? And I think from the perspective, and I agree 100% she's the right person to lead this. But I think if she has interest in the position, we maybe should give her the latitudes to maybe in a month or two, she may want to recuse from it or have discussions with the mayor and I if someone persuades her into applying. But I give her that option that she's not kind of shut out because she's leading the charge here. Anyway, those are just comments, because I think we need to make sure the door's open for anyone and everyone that would be interested, and you know, bring that forward as a discussion with council at some point in the next few months.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I agree 100% with that. I was just going to say, I agree with that 100%. Who knows? Maybe a councilor will resign and they'll apply.
Okay, there you go.
It's happened before.
Yep.
It has happened before. Absolutely, it has.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, they're good suggestions. Any other, Dave?
And so, Brian, tongue in cheek, you kind of see you laughing, but if some councillor does apply, I think they should consider themselves coming forward as an internal applicant to get that out there. And that may be confidentially discussing it with the mayor to start with. And then the mayor can take it from there to talk to Kayla. But, you know, never.
The only thing that that I think wouldn't be overly surprised at is if our present CAO applied. But we'll see how that goes. That would still count as you being here. That wouldn't be a replacement. Okay, not seeing any further comments or questions. We have the motion, and we're with Kayla as the appointed one to lead this. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Seeing none, that is carried. So thank you. And I don't know if this is something to look forward to or well, it'll be good to get it going, but yeah, it's good. Next, we have moved by Jim, seconded by Michael, 8.6.2, and that's library assistant digital services. Did you want to comment on that, Kayla? Or there's Lacey. I bet she'd like to comment on that too. So either one or both, or at the same time, whatever you like.
Sure, I can start. Thank you.
Okay.
So we wanted to put this report together. Lacey and I have talked, and I know Lacey's discussed at her board meeting as well. And we are really just looking to get this job description reviewed by the job evaluation committee and see where it would be placed on the employee pay grid in order to, you know, then at budget time, we can have discussions about the position. But at this point, we're just really looking for where it would sit on the pay grid and if there's any feedback on the actual job description. And then I'll let Lacey expand on what the job description is.
Sure, Lacey? Oh, muted somewhere.
Your headphones are likely messing it up.
Sometimes, Lacey, I find it helpful to say bad words.
Yeah, that
But
usually
make sure your
helps.
microphone's still turned off when you do that.
Nope. So far, you've got us all on the edge of our seat, though. So is this a demonstration of why you need a digital services assistant?
It's a silent movie.
Yeah.
Now, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah. There you are.
All right. See, you're right. This is why I need a technical person. They could have done this for me. So the job that we're looking at is something that the board and I have discussed in the past, pre-COVID, and we're kind of behind on this technology part of the library, and we're with the pandemic and everybody being online, we've only seen a greater need for it. This position would look at all of our e-resources, pricing them, helping me come up with what we should be using, what we shouldn't be using. They would be helping with all of the technology within the library, that staff and public, programming around technology. So, you know, potentially doing some seniors training or helping individuals with their devices as they come in. We also see a really big need in our own community. I think the pandemic has only brought forward the digital divide even more. And so I see this position as quite important, and the board agrees with me. So that's kind of what the aim of this position would be.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? Everything looks fairly quiet so far. Martin.
Yeah, we talked about this at the board, and because of the pandemic, we've seen how important even just the social media is. So we need somebody to look after that. And with things opening up, the staff we had are dealing with a lot more people coming in. There's definite needs. So the pandemic has just made it even sharper that we need this position. It will be a definite asset to the hub that it's going to be in the near future, and just asking to have a look at it and review the description and put it on the budget. It's a position that's needed, so that's about it.
Thank you. Barbara?
Through you to, I guess this is partly a question about process. I'm just wondering, we're approving the draft job description solely for the purposes of getting it evaluated, and that then it will come back and we will deliberate through the budget process as to how and when that position might be rolled out. Like, we're not actually approving the hiring or the recruitment and hiring for this position at the present time.
Correct.
And then my other question is you know, we always talk about, do we need to be approving the certain things like you know, we've already approved in a budget. Brian has mentioned this before. We've already approved in a budget the RFP, like to purchase a pickup truck. Why do we have to approve the tender, the tender listing? And I'm just wondering, why is it that council has to approve a draft before it goes to the evaluation committee? Could that not have saved staff some? Thanks, Dave. I'm just wondering how we can expedite process and allow staff some, you know, latitude to move forward on things to bring better information and maybe speed the process up a bit for them.
Yep. Dave?
Yeah, so I mean, I would hate to see staff going on, and I think this might allow staff to get off on a tangent and create a job description that isn't in line with maybe council's thinking and with the library board's thinking. Because to me, the library board should look at this job description. Council should look at this job description. Is that in line with our goals and our strategic plan to deliver that type of service? And then I think it's important for council to make the decision on the rate of pay for it, and then, you know, shove that into the budget and figure out, especially for this job because it's new, and figure out, does there have to be cuts in other staff hours to create this job, or is this a full ad? So I think council has a lot of, you know, anytime we add a position, we need to be very cautious and make sure that the ad is justified, or get the hours, staffing hours for the job at the right level that can be accommodated in the budget, or adjust casual or other hours to justify this one full. But I think once you create a job, it's hard to back up. So I think council should have every opportunity, and the library board every opportunity, to make sure that staff gets it right. And then when we go forward, it's you know, it's looked after in the budget with no surprises.
Yeah, so just to clarify, it's not that I would support approving a position and staff going out and hiring and recruiting. I was just wondering about the job evaluation process. So I hear what you're saying, and thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, that is carried. So thank you, Kayla and Lacey, and Dave on that one. Next up,
Mr. Mayor,
we have.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, hi.
Is there a possibility of a brief recess?
Sure.
Please.
Yep. We're a couple of minutes before 8:30. How about till 20 to 9? Is that sufficient for everyone?
Excellent.
Sounds good. So let's call recess until 20 to 9.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Barbara, it looks like you're maybe on. Is this just a break? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I don't know who I'm speaking to, but yes, it's Brian
Yes,
here.
Tom and
We're
Heather.
breaking until
Thank you.
20 to 9.
Perfect. Okay, thank you kindly.
You're welcome. What's in the quart sealer, John?
Just water so far.
Oh, okay, all right.
But might as well have a big one so there. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, well, I've got 8:40, and I see all of council and staff. It looks like we're all here. So I have a motion moved by Brian, seconded by Jim, and it's CAO report 2021-064, the draft vaccine policy. Dave, did you want to comment on this first?
You're muted.
So
And my runaway mouse. But anyway, yeah, I wouldn't mind just doing some introductory comments because I know this has been a very, very difficult policy. I've taken the lead on it, and Kayla will be looking after the policy from the standpoint of confidentially communicating and managing records and so on. But this is a really, really difficult one. But it's mandated by regulation. It says we're required to have a policy, a vaccination policy. We've done a lot of research as to what others are doing, but it's mainly about when you go to answer the question, why do we need this policy? It's about employee health and safety of the entire employee group, including full-time, part-time students, volunteers, our fire service volunteers. And we've put also council and committee because I think there's an expectation that, that there's safety amongst those groups. And I've talked to committee members about this, and there's a lot of agreement there as well. that they'll feel safe. Committees and council members, they would still be able to participate virtually, but maybe hopefully someday that this kind of a regulation requiring a vaccination policy can be lifted when we get into a safer place and time. I think it's about service continuity. Outbreaks in a working group could be difficult to deliver services. We don't think about how important sometimes roads department is, but when we're coming up on a season for plowing roads and reliance on getting employees and other sectors, medical, emergency services down our roadways, we have minimum maintenance standards we have to deliver on. And I think it's the medical officer of health has stated in his documents that it's about protecting our community, reducing the chances of community spread and outbreaks. This is not a policy about individuals, it's a policy about a community and a community of employees and the safety of that working group. There is, this policy is very much pointed out that there is a process. That process is, reporting vaccination. If you do not report vaccination and you, feel unsafe getting a vaccination, there's an education piece, there's antigen testing, and a lot of these things we're still working through. So we made the policy on the side of being likely more rigorous, but when we get to a standpoint of laying somebody off, and it even talks about termination, there's very few policies I've seen, or if any, that don't talk about termination as a long-term option. But we're not going to explore any of those kind of options without discussing with council on individual cases in a confidential manner. The reporting of COVID vaccinations would be strictly through the HR, and they would be held confidential. They would not be in personnel files. They would be in a confidential file, and hopefully someday they could be destroyed as personal information under the HR coordinator's control. The policy also very clearly states that there's options for an employee to report or not report, but there's also options that they explore exemptions for medical reasons, whether they're long-term permanent exemptions with doctors' reports, and there's very clear information now coming, and there will be likely more in the future of what those exemptions a doctor can explore as those exemptions. That may expand, we don't know. But the other thing is there is obviously human rights exemptions related to religious beliefs, and those would be explored as well. But that's a very low percentage of the population. When I talk about medical, there's also maybe short-term reasons why they shouldn't be vaccinated, whether it's they're getting certain treatments that might conflict with the vaccine, or there may be a body condition going on that is has an end date in sight. And as well, the employee has every opportunity. In 10C of the report of the document, we made it very clear that we want to put onus on the employee to report to us and give us reasons of how or ways of how there could be accommodation taken place so that it doesn't impact the safety of other employees. All employees being vaccinated have rights to work in a safe workplace. And in the Employment Standards Act, it states very clearly that one of the options where an employee can take leave is for certain reasons that they may deal with the COVID issues, but also if there's employees in the workplace that are concerned about working with non-vaccinated individuals, that the employer has the right to place those people on the unvaccinated people if they don't have an exemption or they don't have an accommodation process to place them on leave without pay, so that the safety of the employees in the workplace that remain, they feel they are working in a safe environment. So That's pretty clear in the Employment Standards Act. But we're looking for employees to, they'll need to get vaccinated. Sorry, they will need to get educated if they don't get vaccinated. And we need to make sure they have correct information, because in reading a lot of information that we are receiving, there's a lot of misinformation out there about what other environments like education and healthcare, what kind of policies they have. Likely the most rigorous vaccination policies are in the healthcare sector to protect the health of patients. And it's very rigorous. So I'll leave it there for comment. I think our policy states very clearly and hides nothing. It tells what the process could be, and but the education piece will be really, really important. I think in the coming weeks, this because we're seeing information. I think Kayla would agree with me here, and I wouldn't mind having her make comments if she thinks I've missed something. Is that there is changes happening daily. We thought we'd have this policy finalized the first of last week, and it was really, you know, Thursday morning before the agenda went out that we got this finalized, because it seemed every day there was new information coming out. And if there is new information comes out, we can amend this policy between now and bylaw, but we want to put this bylaw or this policy forward to start the process of collecting information, finding out those that haven't been vaccinated through Kayla, and she would undertake education. And we've already started that, creating that education information through a PowerPoint to make sure they know the information that is out there that is factual. So I think with that, I mean, I did ask Kayla for any comments and then turn it over to council for questions.
Okay, Kayla?
Thank you. I think Dave captured this policy very well. There are just a couple things that I would like to add on to. One is just a reference to the Ontario the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And we as the employer have an obligation to make sure we do everything in our power to keep everyone safe and our workplace safe. And what we're doing right now is looking to the medical professionals that are telling us how to do that. And they're telling us that vaccinations are one of the steps into making a workplace safe. The second thing that I would just like to provide clarity on is section 10C, well, section 10 of the policy refers to accommodations. And I think maybe there might be a little bit of misunderstanding. I'm not sure, maybe that's part of the policy that we have to clarify, but there is, like Dave said, medical and Ontario human rights accommodations, but 10C speaks to accommodations that are not related to medical or supported by, or the Ontario Human Rights Code. So there is options and there are choices. It is similar to what the county has for their policy that was approved, but it has an additional piece where we want staff to work with us to make sure that the protocols and that they can still do all of their duties while keeping everyone safe. And that's the difference between the two policies, really. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you very much. Brian.
Thank you, John. I agree with what Dave and Kayla have just described there. But I'm wondering, can we not make it a little more straightforward that if someone, as one of the delegations pointed out, if someone chooses not to disclose whether they're vaccinated or not, can we not make it a little more straightforward that they can actually have the rapid test done? I mean, I'm double vaxxed and I fully support the vaccination program. I have a daughter that works in the healthcare industry, and she has told me the devastation that she has seen from this virus. And the only way out of it is vaccination, 100%. But that said, I'm not insensitive to the issues that some people have. And I think that that is a better way forward, is to try to deal with the hesitation and the concerns that some people have about the vaccines or the process. And I think if we can make it safer for them, it makes it safer for all of us. So I would very much like to see some kind of revision here when it comes back to us that allows a rapid test for employees that either choose not to disclose or don't want to be vaccinated. Is that a possibility? Thank you.
Kayla just had her hand up, so I think we'll find out. Go ahead, Kayla.
So the answer is yes. We could make a revision. We are giving that as an option. We just have the additional piece in there that we want them to work with us to make sure that additional protocols are put in place to keep the entire workplace safe, with unvaccinated individuals included in the workplace. But if they choose not to provide their status of vaccination, whether it's because they're not vaccinated or they are, then the alternative is the education, the rapid antigen testing, as well as working with us. We call it accommodation just because it is additional protocols.
Right. Okay. Well, and I do appreciate all the work and the difficulty this policy has caused, but I think if that paragraph 10C was rejigged somehow to make it a little clearer to folks, I think that would be helpful. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Dave?
Maybe I'll add to that is the antigen testing right now in a lot of cases is being looked at as a transition to a vaccinated workplace. The other thing that's coming out about antigen testing is okay, who administers the antigen testing? It can be administered individually, but you know, so there's been stuff come out in the last 48 hours on the reporting of that, and how are we going to have a professional report on it, or are we going to trust the employee to report accurately? I think a lot of it comes down to the cooperation and working with the employee one-on-one with HR to see that they are working with us, because I think there's an expectation by employees that are vaccinated that they want to be protected, and antigen testing is only good till the end of the day, really. Who knows what tomorrow brings. And so we're going to ask people to antigen test at their cost when we run out of kits. There's all kinds of things. So the cost of that's $40 a person. Are we going to absorb that cost? So it's a very difficult subject. And as we move forward, maybe we can get to a point in time where that can work, and maybe we can't. I think we have to just go down the road and see what fits. But there's going to be more information, I think, come out between now and October 6th. But there has to be like in some cases, there's going to be cooperation from employees, and some places there's not. So, you know, how do we, if they want to work with us, we'll work with them and find a way. For accommodation being antigen testing, working in some other environment, it may be job reassignment, who knows? But we have to be cognizant of people in the workplace not wanting to work with non-vaccinated individuals. And the accommodation piece of, are we going to accommodate, is there an expectation when someone knocks on the door, whether it's a building official or anyone else, that our employees are double vaccinated? So maybe some employees won't be able to do those kind of services when it is in their job description. So that's, you know, even the transfer station attendants, is there an expectation that when someone goes to the transfer station that they're dealing with a double vaccinated? So that's why we're required to have these policies. Very, very difficult policy. This is the most difficult things I've had to deal with, because there's all kinds of information out there, and there's some very, very rigorous policies that we have looked at, and there's some other policies we've looked at that aren't as rigorous. So, but it's about employee safety, number one.
Okay, thank you. Barb, I saw you had your hand up earlier, and then Martin.
I think Martin was first. But thank you for recognizing me. You're right, Dave. This is probably the most difficult policy that we would ever, that has come across our desks anyway. And it's very divisive. And I guess I'm just going to throw out a few things. I'm, writing things down and making notes. And first of all, how would anyone know the other person isn't vaccinated? Because that's supposed to be confidential. Second of all, I think we do owe our employees, we've invested time and education, training to a lot of our employees, and it would be a sad day to lose those, that expertise in certain areas. The vaccine doesn't prevent us from getting COVID or transmitting it. That's a given. The public health publication that came out doesn't mandate vaccination. It encourages vaccination and make it easy for employees to do so. So forcing someone to take a medication that is, or a drug that is, that they believe, and I'm all for the education for sure, because there is a lot of misinformation out there. With the threat of possible dismissal, where like that's harsh for me. But this is where I came to really look at the policy. I agree with Brian in that we could make it much more clear that an employee has options. That because someone may have already had COVID and recovered and has better immunity to COVID than we do, that might be vaccinated. And that's a study I just read. I just read it in the news, Brian. So you can shake your head. It's okay. But again, misinformation. What is true? And we can only go by what public health is providing to us. I think that employees who, for whatever reason, can't get COVID or choose not to get COVID for their own personal reasons should have the same options as a person who we're going to accommodate because of a bona fide medical or religious reason. That includes rapid testing, and maybe after a couple of weeks of rapid testing, they'll want to get a vaccination. Masks, social distancing, participating in meetings remotely, which we have the advantage of doing. Have we even considered, Dave, you mentioned various departments for continuity of service. Are we exploring opportunities to have shared backup with neighboring municipalities for, let's say, the water department? Because that is a true essential department. We wouldn't want to have anything go wrong with our water department. So these are just things that we can explore as an employer. But I agree with Brian in that we need to make it very clear that we're going to work with, and here are your options. Get vaccinated. You still have to wear a mask. You still have to social distance. There's no special privileges to getting vaccinated these days, other than unless you want to go to a baseball game or dine indoors. But I understand the reason for the policy. I can appreciate the difficulty that in creating the policy and the effort and care that went into the wording. So thank you to staff. But that section, accommodation, I agree with Brian. It can be much more clear so that it can provide choice to the employee with conditions.
Okay, thank you. Martin.
You're muted, Martin.
So it seems everybody's kind of betwixt and between on this policy. It is one of the hardest ones I think that's come up in the last 3 years, and I'm going to try and keep it short. The one thing that came out is the fact that, health and safety training session for people who have been in the pandemic for 2 years already know how serious it is. This is just a mind changer to say, hey, you've taken the course, do you still agree with it? That comes right out of, I can't agree with that for personal reasons. Nothing to do with the policy, because they already know how serious it is. It's all about them making a choice. And why our policy has to be harsher, which is a good word, whomever, I think it was Brian or Barb who said that, harsher than the one that is at the county level. Why is ours harsher? Because it is. I'm not going to vote for this right now. It has to come back revised, mainly because of that section about accommodation. If education is part of the plan to show people how bad it is after we've all experienced how bad it is for 2 years, that's fine. But to say to somebody in our policy, you still don't want to get vaccinated, you're not medically exempt, you're not religiously exempt, you have 2 weeks without pay, come back, you still want to get one that you're terminated. That is harsh. The Grey County plan says, hey, do the training, look at the little PowerPoint, and then go for the rapid testing, either 1 a week, every 2 weeks, twice a week. That's the way it should go. And, just down, as an aside, just down the states, they've given their federal employees, you have to get vaccinated twice. Even though, as Barb said, you can still get the virus after being vaccinated twice. And then he's made it even more clear, because their Department of Labor, who looks after their health and safety, they said any company that over 100 employees, you have to get double vaccinated. And they give the options of exemptions, religious, medical, but then they're also doing the same thing. Do the testing, and then we're not going to fire you because everybody's doing this testing thing. I think this is too harsh, and something just doesn't sit with me well. We've had certain emails come through to all council and mayor, deputy mayor, and the one that came in to me, he sent a link to a parliamentary statute about genetic testing, and I could see why he sent that, but it really didn't add anything to his argument. But I did go through it, and I read that, I actually have it here, in some changes to the human rights, it says, everybody is equal with other individuals to make themselves the lives that they are able and wish to have, and have their needs accommodated, consistent with their duties and obligations as members of society. Well, even if you get your double shot right now, you still have to wear the mask. You still have to do the hand cleansing. You still have to do the social distancing. So really, other than somebody being vaccinated, nothing has really changed. I've been vaccinated twice with one of the ones that aren't really the greatest ones to have, but it's still recognized by the federal government. I'm not scared of somebody who's not been vaccinated because they're doing all the protocols that they have. It seems everybody is doing the fact that you can have the test. Just why have we gone so much more rigid and overboard when most of our employees really don't meet the community, and they've been doing this, like that part, consistent with their duties and obligations of members of society. Our employees have been doing that for 2 years. Why? The wording's got to be changed. It's got to come back for a revision, because that to some of them, that feels like a slap in the face. I've been going out there working in this mask, doing this, and now I'm going to have to go through this. I just It just doesn't sit well. So I would like to see a revision on that one aspect about accommodation, because just saying we'll accommodate your religious belief, we'll accommodate your medical belief, but we have to do something else, just like the Grey County. I think we should just adopt the Grey County and be done with it. If our people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, which they have done in the 2 years, why in the world do we need a policy when they know what they're doing and we have one all the way up above in county? So I don't know. It is still betwixt and between. Like, what do you do? But I think the testing should be a major part of it. And leave without pay, I can't handle that. I'm not going to vote for that. So that's my say, and I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Martin. Dave and Caleb both want to respond, but I wanted to just mention a couple of things first. As far as the education goes, all you have to do is look at social media, and although we've been living with things for 2 years, there's a lot of people out there that don't know true facts of what's going on. But as an employer, it's our obligation to train our employees on hazards. And so education on the virus with public health information and things like that is really an obligation of to our employees for that under occupational health and safety. The other thing is that some of our employees are mandated, recreation our employees, under the provincial legislation that came down, that youth that are actually involved in the sports can go in without proof of vaccine, whether they have them or not. But if youth was to work in the in like an arena, or any employee does, they must be double vaccinated. So some of our the province has already laid this down for some of our employees. Dave, I'll go to you first, and then Kayla.
Maybe Mayor Woodbury, I think we should hear from Councillor Frew. He had his hand up, and then maybe staff can respond to Councillor Shipston and some other comments that's been received, as well as Councillor Frew.
Sure. Sorry, Jim, I didn't see your hand there, but go ahead.
No problem. I'm fully in favor of the vaccination. I think it's essential. And I think the other governments should be mandating this. If we don't, this particular Delta virus could mutate once again and we get bitten in the other cheek. As far as the report that Dave has written, Dave, you've got one chance to get this right. We're getting close to the winter service season. And these new people coming in may refuse to be vaccinated or give you any information, and you could run short of employees pretty quick. So you get one shot at this, and it has to be correct the first time. But wherever you can get support from other members of government, go get it. Provincial or federal, whatever it takes. People should be vaccinated. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Dave?
So I guess I want to take another stab at this, because I think we're thinking that the county policy is so much more lenient than our policy. But I do want to read you the policy statement from the Grey County document. The County of Grey has a responsibility to its employees and stakeholders to prevent the transmission of COVID-19 virus. Meeting all aspects of this policy is a condition of the employment or serving as a volunteer intern or /intern. Employees refusing to comply with this policy will be subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination from employment. The COVID-19 virus presents an ever-changing environment, and this policy will be updated as often as required to continue to ensure a safe environment for our employees, clients, and community. And the reason they use the word termination there, like we have, is what if we have an employee that won't tell us whether they are vaccinated or not vaccinated? What if we have an employee that won't take the education. What if we have an employee that won't or respond to the education in some fashion? What if they don't provide us with if they don't have accommodation exemptions for health reasons from a doctor or from human rights, religion, whatever? And what if they don't provide us with a report on how they're going to accommodate, how they're going to maybe stay away from public contact, how they're going to stay out of the workplace with their job description so that they're not contact with other employees and have a safe workplace. So how do they, and this antigen testing, it's kind of a patchwork in light of not having been vaccinated. But I think we're missing a wee bit here is what do I say to an employee that comes to me, or well, we more apt to come to Kayla and say, from conversations that I've heard in my workplace, we know we have someone that's not vaccinated. I don't want to report work until that person is out of the workplace or whatever. If it's very clear in the documents that we have the rights to lay them off, or, you know, like I say, find accommodation or use their accommodation request to find another way for them to work, whether that's at lesser pay or whether it's doing the same job. But, you know, employees may feel like that. So I think we're thinking about a few employees, but we have to think about, Kayla and I have to think about all employees, the whole, not the one. And so this policy really is about a safe employee workplace for all employees from a health and safety perspective, and from, like Jim said, you know, continuity of services coming up on this winter season. If our, you know, emergency services can't get to work and do their job or respond to calls, we've got minimum maintenance standards we got to deliver on, and that puts us in a liable position. So that's why this policy is so difficult. If they want to work with us, but if someone, like I said, doesn't want to work with us, doesn't want to tell us whether they're vaccinated or not, what do we do with them? And that's the problem. We haven't got to that education piece, and like I said, we will not be putting somebody on leave, and we can, you know, expand on that without a report to council. And we definitely not be recommending or going forward with a termination unless, again, we reported to council. But those are very extreme conditions. But we have to protect those employees that that don't feel safe in the workplace, because this is not, somebody referred to it, it's a drug. It's not a drug. It's a virus vaccination treatment. And we've been taking these treatments for a long, long time. And that's the research that, you know, we have. I mean, we've got other things that are in our past that we get vaccinated for. And we get vaccinated for flus in the fall if you want to take that. But anyway, but I really know that it is a difficult policy. We had a lot of difficulty with it. And, but we have to think of the entire employee group. Kayla, so.
Yep, Kayla, would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I think this is really just in the wording, and maybe like Deputy Mayor Milne had said, that it's just not clear enough in the policy. So just to make it clear verbally, and we will take your recommendations and revise the policy to make it more clear. Your choice would be to, the employee's choice would be to prove their vaccination status or provide an exemption under the Ontario Human Rights Code or a medical exception, or tell us, just write us a report on how you're going to ensure what protocols need to be followed to keep your workplace safe. Now, all accommodations, including human rights, medical, and other, which is whatever people's choices are, include the rapid antigen testing and the education piece. The only time we would do the disciplinary action would be if somebody refuses to do any of it. They don't want to provide proof, they don't want to do the testing, they don't want to do the education, they want nothing to do with this policy. That's when we would have to do some kind of disciplinary action because they're not following our company policy, which is the same with any policy that we have. I think, oh, the education piece. I just wanted to clarify, like the education piece would include information on COVID-19, but it's also on the vaccinations, and it's more just to make sure that people have legitimate factual information. We do find that, you know, a lot of my conversations with people, the information they're finding comes from social media and unfortunately news reports sometimes, and it's not accurate. So what we've done for the draft education piece that we have so far is we only are going to the public health, the Ontario Public Health site, Grey Bruce Public Health site, the Ontario website, the Canadian website, the CDC. Like, they're only legitimate sources. So that's why we would do the education piece. It's not to tell people the same thing that they already know. It's to make sure that they know what's fact versus what's possibly just in social media and fiction.
Okay, thank you. Barbara.
Thank you. And I think Kayla has captured it. In my opinion, based on my concerns, I think Kayla has captured it quite well in that we want to make it clear that there are choices, and here are the choices, and here are your options. If you choose A, or if you choose this avenue, the education piece is key, antigen testing, mask wearing, and if they violate those at any point in time, then it goes to that next level where the employer can take action as required. And Dave, I appreciate what you're saying is that would be an extreme avenue that we would try to avoid. And I think a rewording and coming back to council with that, and I'm not sure how you want to proceed, Dave, as far as, you know, deferring this policy, or and coming back with a revision, or how we do that. But I think employees need to understand there are options, and that the disciplinary action would be undertaken in severe cases where the employee just blatantly disregards the protocols that we've offered. And it's not that I'm opposed to the policy. I understand the need for a policy, and it would have been very difficult to write. So kudos to you, Kayla and Dave, for trying to pull it together. And Kayla, I think you captured it. I think you captured the discussion very well.
Jim, and then, oh, do you want to go, Dave? Or I've got Jim and Mike as well.
Let Mike and Jim go.
Okay, Jim, and then Michael.
This is for Kayla. Kayla, do you know whether or not the Minister of Health has got a short film on this COVID and what's being done to prevent it? Isn't it about time they had something that they could show employees, this is the dangers of this, this is how you can protect yourself?
Go ahead, Kayla.
Yes, so I was actually on the Canadian website today, the Canada website, and they have a bunch of short videos to answer questions, like individual questions, but I didn't see something that captured all the information. I can keep searching though.
That would be the quickest way to give them the education, let them see a 15-minute film on what it does, how it affects people, and how to prevent it. I'm surprised that something like that hasn't come out. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Michael, then Barb, and then Dave.
Yeah, I've read the policy. You know, I've read all the emails that's come in, and did a lot of thinking of myself. And I know as an employer, when this COVID hit, we went to bat. We were sending guys out in separate vehicles. We're doing everything that we can keep all our employees safe. A vaccine comes along. That's what they're telling us we need to do to keep everybody safe and to stop the spread of this virus. As you said, every time we turn around, there's another strain of it out there that's even deadlier than the next strain. So, as I said, it's all about education, but at the same time, we still have to make sure that we're protecting, the public, and at the cost of the public. Like, are we going to start paying for rapid testing? Or are we going to start, keep on sending just one person in a vehicle every day down the road because that's the only way, because no one else will get in the vehicle with them? It all comes with a cost. And I mean, we got to make sure that we're being fair to both the ones. Are we going to compensate the other guys because we're giving this guy $40 a week for a rapid COVID test? The other guy's not doing that because he's double vaccinated. Are we going to say to him, well, we're going to give you an extra $40? Like, we got to make sure we're being fair to both sides of the family here. Like, the ones that don't want to get it versus the ones that want to get it. Like, I don't want to see anybody terminated. That's for darn sure. I mean, as I said, they've worked through this pandemic for the last 2.5 years almost, it seems like. And yeah, we want to get everybody vaccinated, but we need to make sure we're doing it the right way.
Yep, thanks. Barb and then Dave.
Yes, and to that education video, I mean, even the county refers to, you'll undergo an education session. You've referred to an education session. Surely the public health department is going to come up with this educational video or PowerPoint presentation, whatever it is. I think it would be of value to share it with all of us as well. I think all employees can benefit from watching it, regardless of whether they're vaccinated, because I sure would like to get the facts and be better informed to explain to someone who's on the fence, maybe considering getting vaccinated, but is on the fence. So yeah, if whatever you come up with, Kayla, I'd be interested in seeing it as well.
So John, you want me to go now? Take a shot here?
Okay, Dave.
Okay, so I think we've heard a lot, and I'm sure Kayla's wrote a lot down, but I think we'd like to tie a bow around this thing a little bit from what we've heard. And before Barb mentioned about seeing a film, I was thinking about September 22nd, and Kayla's like, you're gonna stare at me or shoot me or call me and say, no, what have you done? But September 22nd is one of our next zoning meetings. I wonder if we could take maybe a 10 o'clock or a 10:30 start and run through our PowerPoint and maybe a video that because there's supposedly a video heading our way from the county possibly, and share that kind of training that we provide to our employees and have department heads attend and others, but show you what that type of education that they'd be going through. I think what we need to do tonight is really, we need a draft approval policy as presented with some of the modifications, and a certainty. Maybe we put in another clause in the resolution to amend it and say, no terminations or layoffs will be without council approval, and that we take a deeper dive into the accommodation piece and explain it better in relation to antigen testing, and whether it's twice a week or 3 times a week, because twice a week is what they're recommending. And before we do the bylaw, determine what the expectation of who absorbs that antigen cost, but ensure that employees know that if they follow the process, they work through the accommodation piece, and that those other safeguards are in place, that they're going to be treated, fairly through the process if they work with the municipality with their circumstance, whatever that may be. But I think we need to, why I'm saying this is, Jim brought a good point up. We need to get in a place where we know we have assurances and safety in each workplace to deliver, winter plowing and other services. We need to have the time between now and the 6th of October, though, to start Kayla doing the work with each employee to find out are they vaccinated or not, and be ready once the bylaws put in place to start the education piece, because that will take a few days and weeks to get done, so that by the 1st of November, 15th of November at the latest, we're going to know exactly where we're at and be able to report back as to council in a confidential manner of the number of employees that we have that, maybe we'll be able to stand up and say, hooray, we have none that cannot be accommodated. But, if they don't want to do the education and participate, that's where, they're going to put themselves in a tough place. And this is happening in other, the medical policies that we've looked at are very rigid, much more rigid than this. Because, they're delivering services to a much more vulnerable crowd. But anyway, that's what we'd like to do, because in some ways time is a wasting to get this all put together and deliver services this winter without the chances of an October, outbreak like they're projecting.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, yeah, maybe to add to that, the good news is that the most recent vaccinations in Dundalk was beyond their expectations. They didn't come as prepared as they should have, and so we had 166 people vaccinated in Dundalk. I forget, on the 8th, I think it was, Kayla. And so we've organized another special vaccination on the 24th, along with one on the 28th of September. So, and we're going to be adding services like providing. There was definitely a large demand for people asking for printouts and certification of their vaccination. So we're going to work with the health unit at providing those that piece of paper along with the vaccination at the clinic.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. I've got Jason, Jim, and then Barb. So, Jason.
Yeah, well, like the rest of us, I've really struggled with this. I hate government telling us what to do, probably more than anybody here. But I do like the way Kayla wrapped it up there. We've come to a point here now that we have to do something to get rid of this. None of us ever thought we'd have to live through something like this. So I think we're going to have to all do what we can. And I like the way Kayla wrapped it up. As far as the education talk, though, I kind of wonder if that's going to be a waste of time. If people have decided already they're not going to get it, I don't know what education the video is going to do. I'm pretty sure none of them are going to change their mind. But anyway, I don't want to say we should do it, but I think we're going to have to do it. And I kind of like the way she wrapped it up at the end there.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. And like I was saying before about the occupational health and safety, I was certified rep for 20-something years, and it's more our obligation, and the education part, to make sure the employee has the right information or accurate information. So that whether they still follow it or not is still up to them, but that's I think we're under that obligation. So, Jim.
I'm glad you brought that up, John. I had about 30 years with the City Occupational Health and Safety Act, and there's a regulation in there, Dave, work refusal. There was a time when you had to report a work refusal to the ministry, and they would send an inspector in. I don't know what the reading is on that now, but make sure you're familiar with that section before you get delving into this project again.
Thank you. Barb.
Through you, Mayor Woodbury, and I'm wondering if rather than pausing and waiting, as Dave has indicated, it's important that Kayla start moving forward. I'm wondering if minor adjustments to the resolution, if I might. Lindsay's got her hand up.
Okay, let's hear what Lindsay has to say.
Well, I did write up a draft, but Councillor DeBruyne, you go ahead. We'll see if there's
Okay,
still...
let's see how close we are. I was thinking that that we receive it as information. I'm just going to brainstorm here. That council agree in principle the draft Southgate COVID-19 vaccination policy. The third clause is fine, that directs staff to proceed with collecting the information and holding one-on-one confidential sessions. And that council consider approving a revised Southgate COVID-19 vacation policy at the October 6, 2021 meeting as discussed.
Mine was quite similar. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
And I can read it too for people that aren't. So can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's a bit small.
A little bit larger would be nice.
That's better.
I have to basically kind of redo the whole motion. I have be it resolved that council amend the motion to state the following. 1, that council received the staff report as information. 2, that council received the draft Southgate COVID-19 vaccination policy dated September 15th as presented and agree in principle with the policy. And that council directs staff to revise the vaccination policy to include clearer provisions under the accommodation section of the policy. And that council directs staff to proceed with the human resources coordinator requesting information, collecting employee vaccination data in confidence if provided, and holding one-on-one employee education sessions related to COVID-19 immunization requirements while the policy is being revised. And that council consider approving a revised Southgate COVID-19 vaccination policy by municipal bylaw at the October 6th, 2021 meeting. We can put as discussed.
Mayor Woodbury, I would so move, and while it's very close to what I thought, Lindsay did a much better job of it.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for this, Brian? Okay. Is there any discussion on this motion or this amendment? Jason?
I've got John. I've got a little addition that we should maybe, if you just after the word accommodation section of the policy, that staff include terminology that any considerations of layoffs or terminations be approved by council in a confidential meeting.
And that should probably be a separate clause.
Okay, so is the mover and seconder okay with that?
No.
No?
No,
okay.
I'm not. Want to know why?
Okay.
Because I don't think that council needs to dive into the weeds and start making decisions about who gets hired and who gets fired other than the CAO. Because under the Municipal Act, the CEO is our only employee. We should not be involved with hiring or firing other employees, no matter the issue. I understand the rationale, but you're going down a steep hill there, Dave, on that one. I don't like it, and I won't support it.
So if I may rebut Councillor or Deputy Mayor's opinion, I think this is specifically for this and this situation only. And the reason I say that is that I think it would give employees the confidence that they're getting a fair shake at this thing. That we've put the task in place. We want to say consideration of COVID non-vaccination layoffs and terminations, but that we have acid tested with council at the highest level of management of this organization, that we have gone through all the processes and made sure that we've done everything in our powers to accommodate. and maybe some council member will have some idea, suggestion, but I think it just gives the employees a bit more layer of confidence in this policy. That's the only reason I'm saying this, because I'm sure there's some employees that are against this policy very vigorously, are thinking that here's a couple of employees have dreamed this up. Well, we've acid tested this thing with the restart committee, and it's we've talked to employees about it, and we met with departments. We've done a lot of things, but this has been very, very difficult, and I think it needs the highest level of consideration. I get your point, Brian, about the CEO, but there's certain things the CEO needs advice on.
Okay, Jim and then Barb.
Dave, this confidential meeting, would that be in closed session?
Correct.
Then you better put that in.
Well, instead of saying confidential meeting, just say closed meeting.
Yeah, because if you just leave it as confidential, it would be recorded.
Okay, Barb, you had something?
So I agree that this is a slippery slope, and that that it kind of contradicts the whole premise that the policy and the vaccination status of someone and their accommodation program, how that it will solely lie with the HR department. At some point, if an employee totally disregards all of the accommodation options, refuses to wear a mask, refuses testing, all of those, that layoffs or termination would be as a last resort. How that happens, whether it's in consultation with council in closed session, I think they need to have some confidence that it still remains confidential. Health information should remain confidential, and you've put in place every avenue to protect that confidentiality. I agree to a degree that it should be staff's recommendation that we've reached an impasse and there's no alternative. Whether that is through a closed session with council just to advise them, I'm not sure how that is, and I don't know that it needs to be a clause in this resolution. Perhaps before it comes back to council, you and Kayla, Dave and Kayla, you can consider how that could be worded appropriately. I don't think it needs to be a direction, because we've directed you to include clearer provisions under the accommodation. I think we've made it very clear that termination or layoffs would be as a last resort. And maybe that's all we have to say.
Dave?
You're muted.
You're on mute.
That was maybe a good thing, because for some reason my phone's ringing at the same time. Barb said something there that I don't think that in any way this resolution here that we've added, discussion with council, Kayla's not and I aren't going to show up at a meeting with the clerk and say, so what do you think? We're definitely going to be coming and saying, employee X hasn't done this, this, and this, and this, and we're recommending layoff, or we're recommending termination. It's not, but we want you to be involved in the process and say, well, just to give us that backup that we're all on the same page and that this is the right way to go, and maybe you're going to say, well, get legal advice, or if we haven't already done so. But I think that's where it's going to be. We're not going to come here and just throw it on your lap and say, well, what do you think now? That would be the process. We definitely run through a bunch of a bunch of checklists and so on as to, you know, what they haven't done and what they have done to get to this point in time.
Okay.
Could I make, Mayor Woodbury, just add, instead of approved by council in closed session, be reviewed by council in closed session? Does that, or I don't even know that it's necessary myself, but I don't know. I'm on the fence on whether the clause is even necessary.
Okay, well, you're the mover and Brian was a seconder for the motion, so it's what your motion's gonna say.
Have you changed your mind at all, Brian, based on the discussion?
Look, for process here, I'll leave it as I'll second it, but I can tell you now I will not support it, but I will second it just so it stays on the table. Carry on.
Okay. Okay, Jason.
Just wondering, this is maybe kind of veering off from where we are right now. I would like to see, and maybe I don't think it's in here, like, so say next spring they say the pandemic's over, COVID is gone. Is this policy that we have here, I would like to see where it's terminated, and like we say, you know, all the files are destroyed or whatever. Do we have anything there like that? Because like, I know it says COVID on this, but can we?
Yeah. Can I give you a quick answer? I'm hoping we can demolish this policy if somebody says that. That would be Kayla and I. If we had that, we'd likely have a hooray day, because we don't want to have this policy in place forever, for sure. If
that's what I just wondered. You know, if they say it's over, and
the pandemic's over,
that's what I was gonna say.
We need to be boosted, or boosters are recommended, and a vaccination policy is no longer needed. We would take and review this bylaw. We'd turn it down, like we'd pull the bylaw and terminate it.
Good. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So we have the motion that's in front of you right now. Any more comments on this motion, Barbara?
I would say take that clause out, and staff, you can figure out how that wording, if you feel it necessary in the policy, and then we can consider it in the policy, but I don't believe that it needs to be in the resolution. Thank you.
And I'm pretty sure that Brian would support that as the seconder, but I'll let him say, yeah, he gives a thumbs up. Okay, so the way the motion's worded now is without that clause in, and it's before you. Any other discussion on this? Okay. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Seeing none, then that motion is passed. Now, Lindsay, just for clarification, was this an amendment or in place of the original motion?
This was an amendment, Mayor Woodbury, so we'll do the main motion as amended now.
Okay, good. So now that's exactly what we have, is the main motion as amended. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, is anyone opposed? And that is carried. And I too would like to thank Kayla and Dave and everyone else and staff that had input into this. I know it hasn't been easy and has weighed heavy on you. And like you say, it would be really nice if next week the pandemic was over and we could just throw it out. But this is where we are. Right now, I'll entertain a motion to go past 10. Barb? Okay, seconder. Martin? Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Next, we have 8.8.1, the Flat Oak Glen Elk Phase 2 support resolution. Clint, are you still up? Oh yeah, there you are. Anything you'd like to say on this?
That was a long discussion we had before, so I think in the case of this one, I'd just like to say two things. One is that in my report, I really made note that council is going to have to in future start putting wastewater as a higher priority to get our capacity increased, and I was glad to see council support Jim's report earlier in the agenda, because that will greatly affect how development proceeds in the future. And the second thing is just that I'm recommending supporting this resolution to then send on to the County of Grey.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions? Well, looks like this discussion isn't going to be as long as the last one. So anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Next, oh, not sure if I even said that was moved by Jim, seconded by Jason. Next is 8.8.2. That's the Wilder Lake subdivision zoning, moved by Martin, seconded by Michael. Anything you want to add to that, Clint?
Yeah, there was a couple things. First, I think it might be in council's interest to separate out some of those things in my resolution, just if they want to vote on them separately. The other thing is there was just some question about timing and how things work with respect to making sure all of the recommendations and whatnot get included in various documents and then are followed through on. So it's put in the subdivision agreement, all of these conditions, and they would include the recommendations that were put in all of the studies and whatnot. So that's in the subdivision agreement, which is registered on title, and it'll be registered on each individual lot. We have to ensure that that's done, and one of the ways we do that is we place a holding symbol on the property so that before it's registered and those lots can actually be sold, we're sure that every single individual lot has that subdivision agreement registered on title, so that every lot owner will have a copy of it and will know, and so on. The one comment was brought up about zoning the lake. Typically, that hasn't been a practice that I've seen in Grey County. However, I'm sure it's happened elsewhere in Ontario, but that's not something that I have entertained. But it is it was brought up this evening by one of the delegations, and certainly it's something we can look into if council wishes that. The last thing is that we've tried. There was a comment that we simply dismissed some comments that were made from the public, and I would rather look at it that we tried to address them all. We knew we can't address everyone's 100%. It's just not possible in some instances. We try to create a balance between what's an individual developer's rights versus the public interest, and then the ratepayers' rights. And they're all tied in together. So we try to create a balance, and from that, I've created this report and presented it to council, and I'll take questions on that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know a lot of work has been put into this by you and others. Any questions, comments from council? Not seeing any. And I will note, no, there's Barb and then Martin. I will note that Brian is not participating in this discussion. Barb, then Martin.
So part of the audio cut out while Clinton was speaking, and I know that Clinton, you have been very responsive to the concerns of residents, and they do present some interesting and worthwhile information. I'm just not sure where this goes as far as the comments that may have been presented earlier tonight, Clinton. Does that present any concern for you in moving forward? And I guess the only other question I had was, could you just confirm that I read it correctly, that night sky lighting will also, existing lighting at the dock and the restaurant will be reviewed and would have to comply to a policy? I'm not sure how that all happens, if in fact it isn't compliant.
Okay. So
I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that, yeah, you know what I mean.
Okay, so going to your first question, I wouldn't have brought this forward if I wasn't comfortable with it. So I am comfortable with how much work we've put into this and effort that we've tried to address policies and opinions from everyone, including agencies and members of the public, to try and get this right. And I'm confident that we've got something there, and we can work with that. As far as your question about the dark sky lighting, it is my intention to have that included in the site plan agreement, that they are going to be required to adjust the dock lighting and the clubhouse lighting to conform with the dark sky policies and standards of the township. That being said, there's also an opportunity to make it more inclusive, not just saying it's this one developer. Maybe this should be looked at on a broader basis. And so
I think so too. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Martin? See, I told you should have put 20 in to start with.
Well, I owe you, John. So there we go. There was a couple of sections where it said there's no sheds or any buildings allowed close to the lake, things like that. The people, the aeronauts that were present at the very beginning of the meeting, they were mentioning about perhaps docks appearing on 10 lots. Is that possible with the way the site plan and the vegetation that's going to be planted? Is there going to be room for anything like that? Because there's supposed to be berms, trees, and the retention plan with certain native species that will take up fertilizer before it gets into the lake. And we're not talking about septic, we're talking about fertilizer that they are going to be putting on the grounds. So how does that work? And the other thing, the part where it says that the water, I'm finding it here. Sorry, I apologize. Well, with the water systems where it's going to be owned by the condo instead of the township, if they're taking over that kind of water management, I'm just putting it out there because they have mentioned this green algae, which can all of a sudden bloom into the blue, which is very toxic. Who's going to be put on if the condominium is taking over that water system of management? Who's going to pay for those people to get their water tested so they could use it? And I'm meaning the residents already there. Is that something that we can put in this? I know it's already been done, but just wondering.
Okay. There was about 4 questions in there, so I'll try and.
Well, I apologize for that. You pick out the 2 biggest ones, and then we'll talk later.
Okay, so the first one about the buildings and the docks, etc. So what I've suggested right now is that we just, instead of having a special EP zone, is that we just have a regular EP zone like we have everywhere else,
okay,
which prohibits any buildings or structures within the EP zone. Okay, so that's including a shed. So there's nothing there within the first 30 meters or 100 feet from the water. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
When you get to the water's edge, this is where it changes, where it's not actually part of the subdivision or the zoning. Okay. So docks that are put in there, floating docks and things like that, that's where it changes. That's not our jurisdiction to regulate that at all. Okay. It's when it comes on land that we have the ability to regulate that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm just trying. I got that? I'm trying to think of your other question.
No, that's fine. They were the biggest ones.
Oh,
That's fine.
sorry, the water. That's right. So
yeah,
with you had 2 sort of things. You were talking about algae blooms and stormwater management maintenance, and then you were talking about drinking water. Okay, so
forget the drinking water then.
What's that?
Forget the drinking water then. Just whatever happens if there is a blue bloom, who's on? That's toxic. Who's going to be liable for that? The subdivision or the township? Because they're. That's what I meant to say. I apologize.
Well, that's sort of what ties into my other part of my report about doing additional work there in terms of institute a mandatory inspection program for all of the cottages.
Okay.
The ones in the new subdivision and the older cottages that are there, to try and prevent something like that from happening. And then going forward and doing some education pieces as well. Wouldn't go amiss about that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Overall, though, Clinton, a lot of good work on there, you know, and it's very acceptable with everything that's going on. So good job.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Barbara.
Through you, just to clarify, I think I was wondering if there was some, I'm now confused, but the stormwater management is part of that condo management program, you know, the environmental management plan, and they have to form a condominium corporation, and that's the maintenance. That has nothing to do with the algae on the lake. That's stormwater management, and the responsibility for that is separate from any care and control of the lake. Is that's correct?
Yes.
And the dock is going to be part of that condo.
The dock is not.
Okay, thank you.
The stormwater portions
Right.
are, I believe.
The dock is part of the homestead clubhouse.
Sorry, the dock block will be part of the homestead and like it'll be all part of the condo. It's
I
getting
know.
late.
And that's and to the comments made, you know, that's where it gets difficult. Who keeps track of it all? But we're gonna leave that up to you because you're doing such a great job so far. Thanks, Clinton.
And just one last point, if I may. The municipality, although we're not maintaining the stormwater ponds in a direct sense, we are sort of putting in a clause there that we are the backstop, if you will, meaning if something fails on those systems and we are required to go in to improve it, we have that ability to do that. If for whatever reason the condo corp doesn't maintain their responsibilities, we have the ability to go in and fix it up to ensure things keep working properly.
Follow up?
Yep, go ahead.
You make a really good point there. It made me think, Clinton, when the township is the backstop, but who's the overseeing body? Will the township, oh, Dave's got his hand up.
Yep.
The township be doing regular inspections to make sure that the condominium corporation is actually doing what they're supposed to be doing?
You want me to take that, Clint? Yeah.
I'll let Dave take that one, sure.
Yeah. I think we've been always clear on this, is that if we want to make the stormwater management ponds look pretty, cutting grass, that type of thing, that will be either the homestead or the condo corp or whatever. We will manage the functioning of the stormwater management ponds. So if they need cleaned out, but inspection and maintenance of the actual functioning of the storm ponds will remain as an easement requirement we will retain as a township.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Brian, we haven't lost you. Hey, there he is. We didn't lose him. No bylaws and motions that I have. Notice of motion, I didn't receive any. And I don't see anybody jumping up and down wanting to say one now. So next we have the consent agenda, the regular business. That's 11.1, moved by Jason, seconded by Jim. I didn't get notice of anything being pulled. Does anyone want to comment on any of these? I'll just say that to Jim that it was a good report for the, I always call it the alphabet, the DWQMS. They go through things, the drinking water, they go through things with a fine tooth comb. So always glad to see a good report. Okay, so if there's nothing, Brian, go ahead.
Just real quickly, Mr. Mayor, if I could just say a big shout out to the Durham Fire Department, or I know they call themselves West Grey over there, but it's the Durham Fire Department. They graciously offered the use of one of their pumpers while ours gets fixed, and that's you never know when you need a good friend, it's nice to have them. So just kudos to the Durham guys and gals for helping us out.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. That type of stuff is worth more than any budget or things that you have, that goodwill and that helpfulness.
And just real quickly, if Derek had a grease gun, he could have greased that bearing in his own truck and it maybe wouldn't have went out.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, that didn't make him jump onto the screen yet, so. Okay, not seeing any other comments. Is anyone opposed to the motion for the 11.1? So, okay, that is carried. Next is 11.2, correspondence consent agenda, moved by Michael, seconded by Jason. Anyone want to comment on that? Okay. Anyone opposed to this motion? That is carried. Next, moved by Jim, seconded by Martin, are the resolutions from other municipalities. I didn't get any of those pulled. I don't know if anyone wants now, but anyone want to comment on any of those? Brian.
Just a clarification. Are these like the old, we used to call it note and file, but what if a municipality is looking for support and we just adopt these, are we automatically supporting that motion, or what are we doing? Maybe that's a question for the clerk, please.
Oh, okay, there's the clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. No, we're just receiving them as information. The motions used to state, I forget what they were, but I remember we revised them to just receive as information. If we wanted to support, we'd have to pull it in direct.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none. Anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. We don't have anything for consent items for closed session. County report. We did the, there it is. We had a presentation on preparing for electric vehicles. There was long discussions on what I told you about before. Brian and I had explained about the motion to move forward with Rockwood, but to place extra beds from Grey Gables on hold right now. And that was a fairly lengthy discussion. Let's see. We looked at the some of the year-end financials, the September 30th National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, immunization policy. I think that was pretty well most of everything. Do you want to add anything, Brian?
Just that County Council is going back to the chambers October the 14th.
Yep.
Live and in person.
Yes. Starting at
From
10 a.m.
Blueberry Hill.
Yeah. Any questions or comments on county? And it should be that should be a hybrid, is what they were saying too. It could be a hybrid for those that don't want to go back.
Could be.
Could
and
be,
when I read that email, I could hear a Yahoo, and that came from the Deputy Mayor of Grey Highlands, because he's been relentless on the staff up there about going back in person. So
yes,
we all look forward to that, I think.
Yeah. Okay, Michael.
Does that mean that we're going to go back in soon?
Well, we don't have a chambers anymore. It's office space now. So if we decide to go back in person, we'll have to do it somewhere like the arena or somewhere until our chambers are ready in Holstein. So we'll have to see how that goes.
And if we had it outside in the tent, we'd have to have dark sky compliant lighting this time of night.
Depending on the drainage. Members' privilege. Anybody have anything? I was at the last vaccination and we had Kayla and Kevin and Ethan there, the pop-up clinic, and yeah, it was steady the whole time. So a lot of people second needles and some first, and so probably going to have another one scheduled. Okay, not seeing anything else there. We don't have anything for, oh, Barb, go ahead.
Just a shout out to the Dundalk Agricultural Society. They did a great job. I think everyone was having a great time it was a super day. The food booth was a hopping, and I hear they ran out of food basically. So
Yeah.
way into the evening. So kudos to the society for giving us an opportunity to gather outside and have a good time.
Yep, and I agree, and I think we're seeing that all through the community with the rodeo and agricultural expo, and then this one on the east end. And Brian and I both worked the gates at separate times, and I don't think either one of us got run over. So I think that says we're doing something. So
Yeah,
I had Jason for a backup, so
there
or
you go.
protection, I should say.
they were
So nobody was going to mess with me.
Yeah.
they were selling hamburgers at the end of the night in a tray. You can just put ketchup and mustard and relish on the tray because they ran out of buns. They were down to hot dog buns on hamburgers, and by the time they closed it down, they were out of hamburgers, and the only thing was left was black coffee. And every pot, every tart, everything that was in the food booth, it was all gone. There was absolutely nothing to put away.
Good.
Yeah, it was a good turnout.
Yeah, that was really good to see the turnout. So, okay, if there's nothing else there, we'll move on to the confirming bylaw, which is moved by Barb and seconded by Jason. Lindsay, I'll get you to do the vote because I don't see any hands up for any discussion on that.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So recorded vote called for the confirming bylaw. Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Councillor Crew,
Yes.
Councillor Green,
In favor.
Excuse me.
Councillor Shearson.
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Great, thank you. Lots of great discussion and moving things along tonight. So I'd thank everybody for your input. And we have a motion moved by, see if anyone can guess, Brian. We adjourn. So, I'm not going to call for a recorded vote. I think we've all had a long night. And, thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Take care, everyone.
See you. Thanks.
Hey,
Take care.
Thank you, Madam
get
Clerk.
vaccinated.
Yeah.